Well, I think we can start. Well, welcome everybody to this roundtable discussion. It's a panel discussion on education. We are using online more and more for education, training, communicating, and we have quite a wide range of panelists here today. We're going to talk about how the business has changed at the beginning of COVID. And how they're using it as a force for good. We've got people representing future leaders from a young age, if you like, the youth and more mature people. So I'm going to start our panel discussion. I'm going to start with Rohit, who will. Rohit, can you introduce yourself and give us an idea? Rohit is an author. He's also a futurist, and he looks into what the future is for us in the education space. So I think he can set the scene for us. Thank you, Rohit.
Hi, so I'm Rohit Talwar. I'm a futurist. We work with corporations, governments, investors around the world, helping them think about what might shape the future and the implications of that for all sorts of aspects of our world, including education, not just in schooling and higher education, but also in wider society. And what we can see is the scale of change happening in society today is really driving the need for quite radical changes in the way we educate. So to make sure that people are taking responsibility for their own learning, if they're adults, for lifelong learning, and we're continuously learning something new, taking advantage of the tools on the internet, videos, free courses, free certification programs, even low-cost ones from Harvard and places, to learn new skills the whole time. And then in the workplace, equipping people with the ability to keep learning how to learn, and develop their personal skills, problem solving, managing our own stress, collaboration, as well as the technical skills of the job. And we then need to think about how do we reimagine education at every level, not just making it entirely digital, but how do we make sure we move from the traditional model, which in many countries has been about creating economic units of production, to a model that says we're trying to help those individuals maximize their potential in every domain, socially, culturally, and in the work context. And so there's some big shifts required, and also starting to think about how we use our facilities differently. So we know that most schools and most universities aren't used much of the time. In the afternoons, the evenings, they're empty. So how do we start to repurpose those facilities for adult education, bringing in the tutors, the lecturers, so that people can learn in the evenings? Or if I work during the day, how do I learn in the middle of the night? New skills? How do I develop new capacity? And also using people in the community to do that kind of education. We're seeing some incredible things happening with changing MBAs, for example. In the past, it would be common to pay $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 or euros for an MBA. Now you've got programs where it's 5,000 or 6,000 euros, and you might go to the classroom or be online, and all your faculty come in by video anyway. And then a facilitator works with you to make meaning out of what you've heard. But you don't have to, if you're learning about engineering, you don't have to bring in an engineer from BMW to teach things. They can do it over video. So everyone saves time, everyone benefits. And we need those kind of modern techniques. But most importantly, we need to make sure we're investing in people's ability to manage their own future and to navigate their own career path going forward. Christina, you're muted.
Thank you. Thanks, Rohit. Some of the areas where I can hear there's a lot of issues around the practical application to what people are learning, especially in the medical industry, when, you know, they actually do need work experience and so on. So hopefully, if anyone's got experience in this and how to tackle these issues, then please bring it to the fore when I get to you. I wanted at this point to bring in Neil Carmichael. Neil has had a political background. I'm sure you're still very political, Neil. But you've helped chair positions and if you like, led strategy on quite a lot of educational boards and advised companies. And I know that you're an international player. You've seen many projects. Could you give us an idea of your take on education going forward and how we can use technology as a force for good, or how we could do better?
Well, thank you very much, Christina. That's a great introduction because it points to my political background, which was chiefly in education in terms of my role as chair of the Education Select Committee. But what I now do is I'm chief executive of UCEC, which is United Kingdom China Education Cooperation. And you'll imagine that getting to China is very difficult. It has been impossible for 2 years, but we've still managed to make progress precisely because of technology. And what we're doing is basically marketing learning modules and sort of education services through the internet to a substantial number of people in China. We are working in the early years sector. And of course, every year in China, at least 15 million babies arrive. So it's a market which is substantial. It is also very hungry for the sort of expertise that we have in the United Kingdom, because there is really no early years provision in China other than what we are providing and one or two other competitors. What do? Well, we basically take modules that would be used in the United Kingdom, translate them into the appropriate language, Mandarin, obviously, and we make sure that they are properly localized. And that's really my first point. You've got to have an understanding of the locality, the culture, and so on. You can't just land one education system into another country without doing that. My second key point is that you've got to have the right team in place effectively to help this along. And what we've been doing is training people. It's kind of a training the training slogan, if you like. But that's what we're doing because we understand the value of having the right kind of people out and about where our products are landing. Then the third and final point I want to make is that one of the things that UCE has done, I think, successfully is establish partnerships across China. So we have a partnership, for example, with Beijing Normal University. That enables us to plug in to where we want to be in an effective and efficient way. So it is the technology that we're using. It is the internet which we are dependent on. But those 3 points I've just made are absolutely crucial to its success.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. That's great. And how are you actually reaching the audience? You know, because I know there's problems with technology and connectivity. How are you finding that? Which platforms do you use?
We do seem to be successful. On Friday, I'm going to be making a speech to 200 Chinese educators on the best parts of the United Kingdom system. And I'll be doing that from a farm in Northumberland using the Wi-Fi. So we've had no difficulties with that whatsoever. And our relationship with the providers of the platform in China, which I worked on very rigorously during the period running up to COVID, laid the right foundations for the appropriate technology to be in place.
Oh, that's great. Thanks, Neil. I'd like at this point to bring in Christina Tumino. Christina, we call you Cree, don't we? And she's really passionate about education. She's really passionate about future leaders, and she works with young children. And you can introduce yourself, Christina, and you'll do a better job than I will of introducing what you're doing. But the area I want you to focus on after you've introduced yourself is the technology, the quadrant, and how you teach children and what's different about it and how they'll have the skills for the future workforce.
Yes, so thank you very much, Christina. Yes, I'm Christina Tumino. I'm the managing director of Magical Parenting. That is a new kind of organization that I founded, where I had the possibility to. I created a method to educate children, and it's more based on guiding children and parents as well in order to unfold the unique potential of each child, as well following and supporting all areas of growth. So not just mentally speaking, but as well emotionally, physically, and let's say spiritually, in a sense of developing of the self and understanding who you truly are to find your mission and your passion in life. So in terms of technology, I can mention, for instance, I believe that in order to be an innovator, you need to go. I like actually to take this title from Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal, that he said you need to go from 0 to 1 in order to create something. 0 is that area where it's like the infinite possibilities of I don't know, anything that can be creative, the ideas, the potential of ideas, to 1 where it's actually what you can materialize. And that means in order to be original, you need to have freedom. And that is key in my method. And that's the way that I support children, because when you need to be able to follow that kind of inner guidance, that kind of inner voice that's telling you, that curiosity, that thing that leads you to link one thing to another. And that is so important in order to create, because that's, for instance, in schools, that's not normally, standardized education. That's not really possible, because you just go from, it's kind of, there's more like a conformity of thought. It's like learning to do something that is already set for you, while an innovator needs to be able to see beyond, to link things. So freedom is very important. I do use as well a lot the Montessori method, because Montessori is a lot based on that following the child. That means following that freedom. And in terms of technology, what I like to do, for instance, I work a lot with early years, especially with early years, but as well with older children. But early years is so important, because we know, like Jewish, I think it's Jewish, that says that give me the child up to the age of 7 and I will give you the man for the future. So that's the most important age, like the foundation, to create the foundation of the child. So if you actually, the way that I work in terms of technology with children, I teach them to use technology rather than be used by technology. So it's not about being there watching videos and stuff. It's actually teaching. I teach, the children that have like even 3-4 years old, they already learn how to write and read and do additions with place value and thousands. So they're quite advanced in that sense. It's just because they're stimulated in the right environment and following their curiosity. But technology is used more like, we actually work on like Word documents, how to open a Word document, how to write and do things on Word document, it's like actually exploring a software and what can be done. And from there, you can even learn coding, anything from that very early age. So it's, as I said, it's about learning how to use technology and develop it. And they are so creative. Their abilities of creating is impressive. So they can come up with things that you're like, wow, I never thought of that. So I think, that is important to teach them since very young how to use technology, because you could be very surprised of what they can do since they're very, very young, when they have the right support in that sense.
And Christina, we've had many discussions in a HR setting or a people strategy session where we're wanting employees to have certain attributes and qualities, and actually you're using the same language that we would be using in those forums, that curiosity, the creativity, the innovation, the ideas, the freedom to speak and add value. So it's great to hear you're starting there, and this is a model you've brought together, and you've got a special name for your teaching. What's it called?
Yeah, so it's called, the method is called the magical bodies.
The magical bodies.
Yeah, because it's about the 4 main bodies within. So the physical, the emotional, the intellectual, the mental, and the spiritual, in the sense of self-knowledge. And
that's brilliant. Well, I'm going to move into a different direction now, because I know I've got Alec here and I've got Ivan, and both similar organisations but very different. I'll start with Alec. Alec held exhibitions right across the UK, don't you, Alec? And support SMEs. Here an echo, and you're supporting SMEs with their knowledge and training. But everything about your business when we went into lockdown was really physical. It was exhibitions. We met, we went to training programs and courses, and then all of a sudden everything changed. And I've got to say, I was astonished at his resilience. I was trying to understand how he did it. Can you just tell us about the moment you realized you couldn't do what you were doing, and how you transitioned, and what was going on in your mind, and how did you do it?
Absolutely. Thank you for this opportunity. We did trade shows up and down the country. We normally welcomed over 12,000 SMEs to our events, and worked with some huge corporates. And we had all the sponsorships signed up, all the exhibitors signed up, and then all of a sudden we were told that we were in lockdown, and overnight everything dried up, all our revenue dried up, and all of our sponsorships were cancelled. So we had to quickly and very quickly adapt and change what we were doing. And so really what we did was we had to learn quickly different technologies to create a trade show in a virtual environment, which is what we did. We used different technologies. Initially, we just used Zoom, and then we started to use Hopin, and really kind of try to replicate for business owners what they would get at a traditional trade show. But even further than that, we also did virtual awards. We would always do award ceremonies, and we'd normally welcome about 2,000 to 3,000 nominations, and about 400 to 500 businesses would attend. So again, we went into a film studio. We filmed the actual awards, and they were virtual. And we also did virtual training. We'd normally go up and down the UK, and we'd be training SMEs on social media and other topics, and we did them virtually as well. So really did pivot the whole business and adapted the digital age that I think that we're all in now. And we found it very beneficial because we were able to connect people from right across the UK and give people more access.
Thanks, Alec. And I want, because this conference is all about how we can add value to community and how we can be better organisations. I think I want people to understand what drives Great British Expos and why. Because when I asked you how did you do it, you said I had no option. I just had to do it. Can you tell us a little bit about your other activity that's driven by Great British Expos?
When we started Great British Expos, we wanted to be business and community, and we wanted to give back. I had a very troubled childhood. My parents are both drug addicts and in and out of prison, and I was helped by a local youth leader in our local town. So when we became successful, we wanted to give back and really pave the way for other people. So part of what we did was we gave at least 10 to 30% of our annual income to our own charity, which helps abuse victims. They could be victims of domestic abuse, drug abuse, sexual abuse, and really it's a massive livelihood for them. We employ about 30 people, and we help in our community regularly about 600 families with food parcels, food banks, and doing and befriending services. So when the pandemic hit, I didn't have a choice but to actually diversify, because the livelihood of all of those people were dependent upon us, and the charity and the infrastructure that we had, that our capacity was massively increased, because people were expecting us now to go and do shopping for the elderly during the pandemic, or take people for hospital appointments, or go and do prescription collection, or just doing a befriending service. So we had to diversify. We didn't have a choice but to really adapt this digital movement, really, to make things online, to continue to bring revenue in and continue to secure business. So, we had to do it to give back. And looking back now, I mean, I think it's really helped our business and really enabled me to look at different ways of getting revenue. And even though we're going back to physical events, I think we'll always be adopting a hybrid model. And for my other businesses, we've got a national publication called SME Today. We launched that in the pandemic. It's digital. Prior to that, it was a physical printed publication. We've digitalized it. We've got much more reach, and we've now got 186,000 subscribers. So it's really helped us across all aspects of our business, really embracing technology and with a bigger picture of giving back.
That's great. Thanks, Alec. I think you've done It's so much to be applauded, and I just wanted to bring you in to hear your story. I want to move over to Ivan, who I've also worked very closely with you, Ivan, and you were in the same situation. We were all over the world recognizing quality businesses, what they were doing in their communities. We were at the UN together, weren't we? We were looking at CSR together. We were traveling and then that's what we knew. And then all of a sudden everything stopped. Can you tell us about your journey and how you've managed to be engaged with and how it's changed your business?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Buenos dias to our Spanish audience. And yes, indeed, cooperation and partnership with Christina is when 1 + 1 is 11. Yes, we go a long way back, and I appreciate for the invitation today. To answer the question, what changes we implemented and how the digitalization affected us, I think I'll just bring a little bit of information about who we were before all of this COVID situation kicked in back in 2020, and what were our key elements of our success for the past 22 years. We've always been passionate about people from around the world, recognizing their achievement. Our motto is we're building the world of successful people. And of course, the atmosphere that you have at live events is fantastic. And that was number one for us during that period. The venues where we held it, the countries, they bring additional values. We always love London, we love Barcelona for its diversity. We've been, as you said, at the UN in Geneva, fantastic, really global stage for anyone to express their ideas and move their projects forward. And last but not least is the substance. If you have no substance in what you do, then you go pretty much nowhere. And yes, the challenge was how do we transfer all of this tangible, all of this fantastic scenes, how do you transfer something that smells nice, something that feels good, something you can touch, like this book, for example, we published, into something that is digital and virtual. So we assessed our strengths against our weaknesses, and as you know, we've been very creative in our approach to our events. We have excellent team working tirelessly behind it. We have organization, discipline, and structure that makes our organization. We also draw on our international capacity, where we use our British pragmatism as a British Oxford-based company. But also we like some of our Italian partners with their passion and love for whatever they do. We allow the resilience of our Eastern European friends. So we drew on all of that, but unfortunately we lacked in technology, and that's where collaboration is essential. So we looked for a great partner. We cross-contaminated with them, literally becoming a hybrid of techno passion company, if you like, that allowed us to create what we call a live show almost, by organizing award ceremonies, trainings that allowed people to remain in continuous touch with us, and also sharing ideas and maintaining the sense of community, even though we could not see each other face to face. So as I described, these are the values that we gain from digitalization. But hopefully we are going to be out of this COVID restrictions very soon. In Britain, apparently it's the 11th of February. So digitalization brought a lot of benefits to us. But ultimately, nothing can change human touch, human love, and human relationship that you can only achieve by live encounters. That's my humble experience over the past 2 years.
That's fabulous. Thanks, Ivan. what the forums that I love most about Europa Business Assembly, we have forums with many nationalities, and not everybody speaks English. They speak everything, but they manage to communicate in such a way, it's incredible. And the joint projects and initiatives, and many of them are coming from emerging countries, but they've been successful, and they do so much in their own communities, and it's always inspirational to see their achievements and to share with each other, and then they're taken forward. Thanks, Ivan. Now, that leads me on to my next speaker, who I met at Europe Business Assembly, and that was Ludmilla. Ludmilla, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us about how education has changed? You started your business in the early 1990s, wasn't it?
Yes, Christina. Good evening, everybody. I guess evening, I don't know where you guys, but for Moscow, where I'm from, it is late evening. And so I'm really pleased to be here. Thank you for the invitation. About my business, I am from academic world in my roots. And actually, I've spent 15 years in doing just researchers. But still, I consider myself as an experimental implementer of the educational achievements. So for 30 years, that is how long I consider myself to be an entrepreneur. So I did both. I went through the practical, from the practical point of view, how to do things, and from very accurately in being in scientific technologies. I'm talking about neurotechnologies because what was my doctoral degree about? It was about how people not just learn the language, but how they can get the understanding of the deeper thing in the language. And so we did pretty well when we did not think so much about digital stuff, but the pandemic situation made us think how to make good services for our 150 100 clients. That is the number of students we teach simultaneously. And so, of course, we just had to face the difficulties. And I would like to bring for the discussion, maybe today, maybe the other day, 3 points which we have faced and actually facing at the moment. First of all, that is illusions or fakes versus reality. I don't know how you guys deal, but we really experience the difficulties how to compete the info gypsies, that is the companies or people who actually bring to the market, make their marketing activities, advertising this or that, how good they can do, let us say, teaching foreign languages or do other things like teaching, whatever teaching. That is number one thing. How to deal, how to make people understand, and how to make the good choice, because that is the problem. The second thing, the second point, which I would like to discuss or to think together, that is how to deal, we have mentioned it already, and thank you very much, colleagues, that is how to deal with emotions and emotional stuff. And how, let us say, if we are talking about emotions, we have started to use such, let us say, a technology or the unit of technology, movie lessons. Of course, it helps to bring for the discussion some topics, but how a teacher can control what is happening, what is going on, because it's not the same how you can feel the emotions in the class, but it's so difficult to do through via the screen. And the next thing, which is very important for me, and I would like to discuss with you about the priorities in education, what to do. I agree, of course, all of us, and I'm talking about myself, need to improve our skills in hard skills and soft skills, of course. But I think that at the moment we have to think in future that is about large scale thinking, not just about we should imagine that our world is so united now, and we have to pay attention a lot to the large, what I call large scale thinking in new era. And this strategic thinking again causes us to think about new educational products. Thank you very much for your attention, and I would like to listen to you and maybe to find people who are interested in the same topics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ludmila. Well, I think that leads us nicely over to hear from Stephanie. Stephanie, I'd like to bring you in at this point. You've got so much experience in the education field, the platforms, working with universities and colleges, and I know that you have been working with some technology that was for apprenticeships, because everybody isn't academic. It's those practical skills, and it going to quite a high level. Could you just give us an overview of that, Stephanie?
Yes, and thank you, everyone. The contributions so far have actually been really quite significant, and it's I could have actually sat here for the full hour because this is quite a passion for me, was introducing technology. It's been part of my career right from way back when I was working in a further education college here in the southwest of the United Kingdom. I would like to say, and a lot of people have talked about the impact on their businesses during the pandemic. I have to give some credit to our exam boards and other external bodies that supported our mainstream education, because within about 6 months, obviously the government were very heavily involved in supporting this, but both our apprenticeships and our young people were actually able to do remote exams using technology. I thought this was very creative and very innovative. And one of the nicest things is that the awarding bodies in England, the exam boards, are continuing to use this. They're still embracing this technology. One of the things that we had in place, we had a digital agenda which we were applying to our delivery to, I'm calling it standard education because it's obviously our background. We had a VLE, a virtual learning environment, which was used reasonably well by our staff. There was, once the pandemic hit, all of our apprenticeship delivery continued online. It's a very difficult process, and I'd need another hour to discuss our apprenticeship programs in the UK with you if I wanted to do that in detail. But just to say that we were able to continue with our delivery using knowledge modules on our VLE, our virtual learning environment, and obviously using video technology to support our learners. But one of the main things, and a few people have brought this up in the speakers before me, is that all of our young people that we had connections with through Green Labyrinth Training, which was the company that we ran up until the end of last year, was that our learners had additional learning support. So we found that a lot of those learners actually quite liked working from home. It reduced their anxiety. It allowed them to be safe in their own homes, but obviously still accessing their through technology, their learning. We had quite a number of additional learners be referred to us with anxiety and mental health issues during the pandemic. And we found that this remote learning, learning from home, actually was a great advantage to reduce the anxiety with some of our young people. Of course, there was some issues with them accessing the tech. Some of them are from such disadvantaged backgrounds, which may surprise some of our foreign visitors on this call, but that's true. There are still deprived areas in the United Kingdom. And luckily, there was a government scheme introduced where technology and recycled technology was actually offered to our young people. So I think my point is, every area, every type of teaching and learning had an impact, or the pandemic and the situation had an impact. I would just like to say we were slightly luckier than most because we'd already started our digital program. So our successes continued. I hope that answers your question, Christina.
Thanks, Stephanie. That's great. There was lots of advice there. And, you know, this is an international conference. I know there'll be people from other countries, other organisations in the public sector. And from my conversations in those environments, they're always looking for models and best practice so they don't have to start from scratch. We've got things to learn from each other. So again, you know, reach out. This is also about networking and learning from each other, knowledge transfer. So if you're hearing something, put a message in, put your details in, reach out to us, and we're happy to connect and help. Because actually, as I mentioned earlier, this conference is about how we can add value to a wider society. Yes, we want to be commercial in our organizations. We want to leverage technology to increase the likelihood of us achieving our objectives. But also it's about that knowledge transfer and the impact on wider communities. At this point, I wonder if I could turn to Lee from Briggs. You are a regional director of a major engineering organisation. If you could introduce yourself, Lee. But I want you to think about the war on talent. It's quite difficult now in some sectors to get the skill sets and the people that you want to work in the way that you want. So sometimes we're taking individuals where there are some gaps. What's your approach to identifying the gaps and filling the gaps? Do you use technology? Can you share that, Lee?
So yeah, hi Christina. Yeah, Lee Beard, Regional Director for Briggs Energies and Services. Interesting subject heading there. War on talent. I guess there is at the moment a war on talent, and a lot of that comes about through shortages and the need to be much more competitive and aggressive in attracting talent and recruiting talent. I think there's probably been a long decline over a number of years. Before I worked in the FM industry and construction, I worked in the chemical industry, and I think the decline of manufacturing in the UK over the last 40 years or so, which is slightly changing direction now, but there was a rather large slump of manufacturing, and when manufacturing kind of started to draw back in the UK, a lot of the interest in STEM type training at school disappeared as well. So science, technology, engineering, and maths. And I remember for a long time when I was working in the chemical industry, there was a real panic amongst the industry in terms of, you know, where are our new chemists coming from, our new engineers coming from. There seems to be a lack of interest, and most people were exploring careers in IT, and people were more interested in IT. And I guess it's the same for the construction industry as well. It's that as time moves on and technology moves on, interest moves on, and we have to remember as employers, of, you know, particularly in this environment, talent's incredibly important for us, and we need to make sure that we remain attractive, we remain relevant. And I think the industry itself and the government does a huge amount in terms of trying to re-establish the interest in STEM, and I think there's still an awful lot more that can be done. I've got two young boys who are 11 and 7, and if I ask them what they want to do when they're older, they tell me they'd like to be YouTube influencers, which for some people works well, but they're going to have a rude awakening. So we need to somehow really continue this good work in how we engage with young people, and how we continue to get those young people thinking about what they want to do in the future, and really pressing on STEM, I think, as a way of doing that. I mean, one of the questions you asked there was, do we use technology for recruitment? I mean, crudely, not really. We tend to we've got a recruitment department. We use LinkedIn, and they use other metrics to search out talent. And you're relying on people really coming forward with their CVs and making themselves available on IT platforms. But in terms of the current market at the moment, it's incredibly competitive. And what we're finding at the moment, which has caught my interest when you said war on talent, is that we're finding that it's good to have a market where you've got competition, but at the moment the competition are heavily headhunting some of our key staff, and interestingly, it's things like LinkedIn, I guess, that gives our key staff profile, and good for them. It gives them an opportunity to explore other places. So for us, I think the emphasis on us is we need to make sure that we remain relevant. We need to make sure that we remain attractive, and we need to make sure that people are happy in their employment with us, so that they don't feel the need to go elsewhere. But we've had a number of conversations in the last 6 months or so about retention and and engaging with key staff that we don't want to lose, and talking to them about what we can do in terms of their career and what changes and adjustments we can make to keep them in the business. So it's tough out there at the moment in terms of talent.
Yeah, I think people would want to be proud of the organisations that they work for.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm proud of you guys. What I see that you do when I see the articles about your activities. But it is a conscious activity to align the values of the organisation and the culture with what the employees feel are important. About protecting and well-being, and protecting individuals, protecting the planet, and it not just being lip service, because we're hearing a lot of organisations, they say these things and they do maybe 1 or 2 projects, but do they really believe it? And I think there's a new workforce coming through where they do, and they want to see it. So I think that engagement piece, to find out what's important to the people that you're recruiting, or before recruiting, that they have the same values as you do. So we earlier had a discussion on the HR panel, but I think that's something that we need to look on, because we actually haven't discussed in this area about the soft skills and how we use that in education today. So I think that's really important, that people do bring their whole selves to the company, and it's no longer appropriate just to say we pay them, they do their job. We've got to look at the whole person, especially now in the past 2 years when people have been fearful and a little bit down and unsure of the future. So I think that plays a big role in how they engage and whether they want to stay with a company. Brayan, I'd like to bring you in at this point, because I know that you've just built a training company, and also you're mentoring organisations, providing advice and so on. What do you see in organisations in terms of developing their teams internally or conscious leadership? Do you have a perspective on this?
I think, yes, thank you for inviting me to speak. I'm Brayan Davies. I'm the ex-CEO of a reasonably large training provider with Stephanie Warren on that. In terms of the workforce and developing the workforce, I think the key to this is to leverage reality rather than what we would like reality to be. People learn in a very specific way, and the first thing that we found was there must be a reason to learn, and then that learning must be contextualized, and it must be delivered in a way where it can be applied and maintained. And the maintenance of skills is a particularly poor, unaddressed area. So what I'd like to try and give a view on, or is that because we think it, it doesn't actually mean it's reality. So actually, if we want to develop a workforce that is effective and adds value, we need to understand what the value is. You know, is it economic activity, employability, social mobility, all of those good things, and then we need to be able to apply a real way of training people or developing people. And if we give them the reason to learn and we contextualize it, and I was particularly interested in the Chinese example where culture played a particular role in the contextualization of the learning, then we can, that in itself will give us a very sound model of best practice. So you can put in a lot of technology on top of that, and you can make knowledge acquisition, for instance, what I call asynchronous. In other words, it doesn't have to be delivered face to face in a synchronous manner and in time. But at some point, you get to a place where if you're teaching or developing adults, it needs to be face to face. And this is where technology. Sorry?
We just got an echo all of a sudden.
Okay, what I'm trying to get at here is that technology can be leveraged. I mean, the technologies that are emerging at the moment called distributed interactive simulation. I don't know whether anybody's ever come across that, but that's where you can bring a lot of simulations synchronously together to teach people to work together, for instance. So there's, as long as you, in my view, or in my experience, as long as you leverage reality and the way the brain actually works and the way the brain changes as you grow, then you have a chance of developing and giving people a reason to learn and a way of learning within the context of which they work and exist. So I'm quite aware actually that I've gone rambling on there. I think the thing that is really interesting is this is I've been over my life I've been exposed to lots of different learning theories, and the one thing that has really stood out is where opinion is regarded as fact very often means that things don't work very well. So it needs to go back to reality, and it needs to leverage the way the brain learns to be able to implement learning, teaching, and mentoring is a very, very key part of what I would call adult learning theory. It's where people are assisted and helped, and they're handheld. They're able to ask questions within the context of their understanding. So I hope that answered the question.
No, that's great, Brayan. And I'd like to say, because you know, in other conversations, it just in terms of personal, because I'm conscious that people who are watching the discussion or listening to the discussion, they want to know how they can advance themselves, how they can learn efficiently. Maybe they've got limited budgets from different countries, different markets, and different walks of life. So I always suggest that they do find a mentor, but not just one, different mentors for different areas that they want to improve. There are a lot of people out there that are looking to support young people or young people in business. Another area, I think we need to do more matchmaking with mentors and young people, but there's a lot out there. If anyone has any best practice in resources or platforms that they want to share with us, please let us know or put it in the chat. Again, sorry.
Can I also just say that it's not just mentoring young people; it's young people mentoring older workers.
Yes.
Because one of the things that is often forgotten about is the 50-pluses. They have a very strong work ethic as a rule. What they don't have is the technical skills or the means of acquiring those technical skills in a way that's safe for them. So young people mentoring older workers.
Oh, I think we've frozen, Brayan. Are we losing to? Is everybody else still here?
Yep.
Okay. Well, yes. I totally agree with what Brian was saying. And actually, that also comes into the inclusion piece. And it's about building respect and the specialities that individuals bring, whether it's experience or youth or new ideas. Bringing in, you know, people who are usually in this area, adding their contribution. So it's having more people around the table. But I do think building that mutual respect and looking at what people are bringing forward rather than just, oh, they've been here, they've been doing it, you know, this way forever. What do they know? We do it differently. I think respect has got to come from everywhere, respect and trust. And that's led by leadership at the top and the culture of the organization. So all of this is integrated, and I know, Rohit, we've used this expression that we're in an entangled society. We were entangled before COVID, but now we've had COVID, and then it's even more entangled now because we've got our emotion and our constraints. Do you want to have final word on that, Rohit?
Yeah, so given that entanglement, it places a requirement around three things. One is our tolerance of uncertainty, which comes from learning, which comes from taking away the assumptions that we have about how the world works and being willing to learn about why we can't be certain. The second is, and we've all been talking about this, learning how to learn faster, continuous learning, and really thinking about learning in every dimension across society. And then the third is about working with other people, learning to work in the ecosystems inside our organization, but also outside. So we've got that bigger radar telling us about what's changing, but really breaking down the barriers inside our organizations, breaking down the views as to who has what responsibility, and seeing it much more as a collective endeavor so that we can navigate this complexity, we can work through the entanglement together rather than each of us trying to drive the future from our individual perspective. We can't get there unless we go together.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it does depend on the culture of the organization, and the leadership needs to lead it. So there are some clear messages there for people of influence in organizations that, you know, if they're not already in that place, they do need to start understanding the attributes and how they need to lead in their organizations if they want to achieve their goals, and articulate their values clearly, and get people around to have a conversation about it. Well, that brings us nearly close to our 1 hour. So what I would like to say is our speakers on our panel today, we will be having question and answers and presentations from our speakers throughout this conference. We'll let you know when there's conversations go live. So they'll have an opportunity to go a bit deeper in their areas of specialization. This session was just about what are the big issues, what's out there, what things that, when we say education, what do we mean? Well, we've talked about young children, we've talked about talent, we've talked business pivoting, technology and platforms. So it's a big area, and I don't want to make things sound a bit more confusing. So I think for the sake of sanity, you have to identify what's important to you, what's relevant to you where you are now in business or in life, and get more interested and go deeper into the areas that really impact your vision, your goals for yourself or your organization. And I'd just like to thank all of our speakers for participating. Some people are very late in their countries, but it's an international conference and technology has brought us here. Also, finally, just to say, doesn't have to be perfect. You know, we're all human beings. We need to have some compassion and kindness for each other. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.